Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Punjabi Hari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamunatira Vanachari. Yamunatira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Jai Mr. Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitacharya, Ashtottara Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Damodar, please don't leave the room. Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitacharya, Ashtottara Srimad, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the Assam devotees. All glories to the Assam devotees. All glories to the Assam devotees. Dravida Prabhu. I think there was a chatter over here somewhere. Can you get it for me? Because I think I'm going to be a little cold. It's colder than I thought it was. Thank you. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Rajesh, this actually can come up. Just be tight a little bit. See if you can bring it up a little bit. This part. Just see. Thank you. Thank you very much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 27th day of February, 2019 in SanDiego, reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are still in chapter 3, entitled Karma Yoga, text 28, page 164. Thank you. I'm going to put this on pause for a minute and wrap a little bit. We're ultimately all rappers. Just wrap my shoulders like this. Measure of warmth. Okay. Okay, ready? Text 28. Tattavitu mahabaho gunakarma vibhagayo gunaguneshu vartanta iti madvana sajjate tattavitu mahabaho Gunakarma vibhagayoho. Gunaguneshu vartanta. Iti matbana sajjate. Tattavittu mahabaho. Gunakarma vibhagayoho. Gunaguneshu vartanta. Iti matbana sajjate. Tattavittu mahabaho. Gunakarma vibhagayo. Gunaguneshu vartanta. Timatvana sajjate. Tattavittu mahabaho. Gunakarma vibhagayo. Gunagunesha vartanta. Itimatvana sajjade. Tattavit, the knower of the absolute truth. 2. But Mahabaho, Almighty Armed One. Gunakarma, of works under material influence. Vibhagayo, differences. Guna, senses. Guneshu, in sense gratification. Vartante, are being engaged. Iti, thus. Matva, thinking. Na, never. Sajjate, becomes attached. Translation. One who is in knowledge of the Absolute Truth, Almighty Armed One, does not engage himself in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the differences between work in devotion and work for fruit of results. Purport. The knower of the Absolute Truth is convinced of his awkward position in material association. He knows that he is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and that his position should not be in the material creation. He knows his real identity as part and parcel of the Supreme, who is eternal bliss and knowledge, and he realizes that somehow or other he is entrapped in the material conception of life. In his pure state of existence, he is meant to dovetail his activities in devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He therefore engages himself in the activities of Krishna consciousness and becomes naturally unattached to the activities of the material senses, which are all circumstantial and temporary. He knows that his material condition of life is under the supreme control of the Lord. Consequently, he is not disturbed by all kinds of material reactions, which he considers to be the mercy of the Lord. According to Srimad Bhagavatam, one who knows the absolute truth in 3 different features, namely Brahman, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is called Tattvavit. For he knows also his own factual position in relationship with the Supreme. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So here we find this word "to" in the first line, which almost always means "but" or "on the other hand." So this verse is in contrast to the previous verse, in which Krishna describes someone who is bewildered by the modes of nature and therefore under the influence of ahankar. Ahankar means I'm doing it. I'm the independent controller and doer. And so the characteristic of such a person is kartaham. I'm the doer. Kartaham iti manyate. But actually, as we read here, it's the 3 modes of nature that are working under the guidance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that unseen force is a mystery to the vast majority of people. And so they fall into the category of text 27. But here is the Tattvavit. Tattvavit is someone who knows the truth. And Srila Prabhupada, he refers at the end of this purport to the verse from the Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, in which this word is prominent. There it is said, Kamasinendriya priti labo jivete yavata jivasa tattvavigyasa nato yashchehe karmabihi. That one should not live in order to satisfy one's senses, Kama se indriya priti means the impulse of material desire for sense gratification. Indriya priti literally means sense gratification. Labo jivati yavata. One should live as simply as possible, basically trying to just keep body and soul together. Don't go to extremes to try to fulfill one's material desires. We have needs to live, but it should be minimal, without extraordinary attempts to satisfy the senses. Then what should be one's goal in life? What should you direct your real energy toward? And that's explained at the rest of the verse. Jivasya tattva jigyasa. Here's that famous word jigyasa from Atato Brahma Jigyasa in the beginning of the Vedanta Sutra. That's why the Bhagavatam is said to be the actual commentary, the perfect commentary on the Brahma Sutras or the Vedanta Sutras. So here the injunction is by Sutta Goswami, speaking to the sages at Naimisharanya. One should direct one's desires and activities toward inquiring into tattva, what the real truth of the matter is, what the ultimate truth is. Narto yashchehe karmabhi, nothing else should be the goal of one's works. So the next question for the attentive soul is, well, what is that tattva? And that's what this verse is, Prabhupada's referring to with this word tattvavid. Vadanti tattvavidas tattvam yajnanam anvayam brahmeti padamarmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. So those who are tattvavid, the knowers of the truth, they say that this non-dual reality, consciousness or knowledge is described as jnanam here, it appears in three phases. It's one reality, but it's approached or it's understood according to the means of approach. So it's Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman is the undifferentiated, all-pervading consciousness, say, And of course, Paramatma, the super soul, is present, localized within every heart, within every atom, a direct expansion of the personality of Krishna, but not manifesting his full powers. But the source of all of them is Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's one who is in knowledge of the absolute truth, knows these three phases, and does not engage himself, or does not engage in the senses and the sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work and devotion and work for fruit of results. So this is a key point, is that if we know the difference between work that entangles us, which is work for fruit of results, and work that liberates us, work here meaning activity of all kinds, then we should be wise enough to choose that which liberates us, rather than simply go along with our conditioning, which has been present for untold births, and which simply produces frustration and suffering. So that's what he's speaking about, the contrast between someone who's under the spell of maya, of illusion, and considers himself an independent doer, an independent enjoyer, and one who understands his connection with this absolute truth and strives to get a progressive realization of Bhagavan. If you get Bhagavan realization, the other realizations are automatically there. Krishna says at the end of the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmanohi pratishtaham. I am the basis of the Brahman. It's part of my energy. In the Brahma Samhita, it's directly said, Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadannakoti, that this Prabha, this Brahman effulgence, is Govinda's effulgence. It's coming from him. So once you understand Govinda, the analogy is given often of the sun and its manifestations. What do we know of the sun? Well, before the sun even rises, we know that it's coming up because the sunshine is coming. The dawn is there. The sky is light. So that's the first understanding, the sunshine. But that's not a full understanding of the sun. Then the sun comes up. Oh, it's localized. The sun is over there in the east. It's not there in the west or the north or south. So it's in a certain position. That's like the Paramatma. And you see the source of all of that light and heat. But if you're actually able to go to the sun in a suitable body, not in a spaceship, then you can meet the sun god and you can understand there's a whole world there. Oh, that seems inconceivable. We know it's just fire. No. It's just like living entities can live in all the media. It's like the fish are living in the water, we're living on the land. There's also living entities in the fire. I like to tell the not a story, but a fact. This came about years ago now, but I remember I was here, and they would do some research in one of these oceanographic, which is the big one up here, not Scripps, but something. Anyway, there's a lot of research going on. They have their ships and they go there. And there's a big trench on the west coast. I think it's a little north of us. But it's one of these things that's, 30,000 feet deep. It's really deep, So they went down in there. I don't think they went personally, but they had these instruments that can go down and, probe around, And they found these vents because there's also volcanoes under there. And they weren't, in full explosion, but they were venting some of their hot gases. And so there's some extremely hot stuff going on under there in the water. And because of all the pressure, it doesn't produce steam or anything. It just produces really, really hot water. And they got some of that water, and they found that there's some kind of bacteria in there. They had to rewrite all the books. That bacteria, they can't live above certain temperature. There's a certain species of bacteria. In other words, the material world is full of surprises. And one of the surprises is, because we learned, don't forget in the second chapter, the living entity is sarvagata. Sarvagata means that, not that we're all pervading, but that we go everywhere. That everywhere you look, in places that seem to be, nothing can live there. Yeah, something can live there. The living entity cannot be cut or burned, cannot be destroyed. So, if you get to the sun, if you actually are able to get to the sun, you'll see there's a whole world there with people, and there's a sun god and everything. So you have Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. You have the undifferentiated effulgence, the light of the sun. You have the localized aspect, which is Paramatma. The undifferentiated light is the Brahman. And then you have Bhagavan as the personality with a world and relationships and activities and everything. And so that's one who knows all those factors of the truth of Brahman is said to be a tattvavit. And such a person acts according to that knowledge, doesn't allow the lower modes of nature to control him or her, and does not engage in the senses and sense gratification, knowing well the difference between work and devotion and work for fruit or results. So this is the hallmark of a truly wise person, is that they know where to find real knowledge, or they're fortunate to find actual knowledge, and then they act on the basis of that knowledge. That's what real wisdom is. Not just that you know something theoretically, but you act on that basis, and then you get more realization. So it's the difference between jnana and vijnana. Jnana means I know. I've read the Bhagavad Gita, I've memorized so many verses. Vijnana means you actually follow the instructions, and Krishna progressively reveals more and more of the truth that otherwise you can't see, because our senses, our mind is not suited to it. It's a refining or cleansing or polishing of the perceptive faculties that enables us to get more and more revelation. Prabhupada would often quote this one verse that's quoted in, I think, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Atak Shri Krishna Namadi Nabave Grayam Indriyai Sevan Mukhi Jivado Swayameva Sporatjada. That in our present state, conditioned state, we cannot perceive the actual nature of the name, form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. Namadi means the holy name, etc. There's four elements. There's four elements to a person that defines him: the name, right? The form, the activities, and the qualities. And so progressively they realize, because the name is absolute, if you chant purely, you can actually realize all of them. But none of them can be perceived in our present state. We're not qualified to see it. Our senses are unsuitable. But if we begin serving Krishna with the tongue, Sevan Mukhi Jivado, by chanting and tasting Krishna Prasad, chanting Hare Krishna, tasting Krishna Prasad, that eventually the purification takes place so that this absolute truth reveals himself. This is the difference. Krishna always reserves the right of not being perceived. Naham prakasha sarvasya yoga maya samavrita. I am not available or visible to everybody as I am. I'm covered by my yoga maya potency. Now, those who are a little familiar with the philosophy know there's something called yoga maya and mahamaya. Right? Yoga maya and mahamaya. So actually, they're one person in two different aspects. Yogamaya is Krishna's internal energy, and she serves to bring us closer to Krishna. Yogamaya, the classic way in which Yogamaya works is covering Krishna's divinity when he's a little child, so that his mother, his exalted mother, Yashoda, can regard him as a little baby child who needs care and attention, otherwise he'll die. He's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he shows it, killing Putin and all that. But she constantly forgets that. He casts the Yogamaya over. Now when he shows her the universe within his mouth, that pastime, where Balaram and the other boys accuse Krishna of eating earth. I never really, had a younger brother or anything, but I think that's like a standard thing. When you're 2 years old, that there's always a danger you're going to eat earth. So they accused him of it. He denied it. But the mother wanted to, mother said, well, prove it. Open your mouth. I want to see if there's any earth in it. So he opened his mouth, and she saw the whole universe. She saw all the creation in there. So when she did it, she says, oh, I'm thinking this is my little boy when he's actually God. I'm thinking that Nanda is his father, And then I think I don't know if she offered obeisances, but she was getting into that mood, So Krishna didn't like that. He wanted her to be able to have that relation with him because he enjoys that. So he cast over the Yogamaya again, so that she would think of him as her little son, and she was the mother like that. So that's Yogamaya. But when the Yogamaya is dealing with the conditioned souls who want to forget Krishna, they don't want to get closer to Krishna by some intimate relation, but they want to forget. Then she acts as Mahamaya to cover Krishna. He's covering himself by the agency of Mahamaya. And that's why, in Prabhu, you're in Maya. That you're allowing the illusory energy to make you forget what your actual relationship is and like that. So that's what Krishna is talking about here. Those who are in Maya, who are bewildered by the three modes of nature, they think themselves independent doers. But those who are knowers of the truth, they know very well the difference between fruitive activity and liberating activity. And so they act in such a way that they'll remain unattached and unentangled. They keep themselves under the influence of the internal energy rather than the external energy. Okay, any further discussion on those points? Go ahead. Let's activate that mic. Mahamaya? Uh-huh. The false ego is it's kind of a result of Mahamaya. The false ego is our own sense of self, which is fallacious. In other words, it's just like if you're, like I give this analogy of, we don't call them costume balls anymore, but what I'm talking about, like Halloween. I remember things that stick in your mind. I was in like 3rd grade, maybe second grade, maybe 5th grade, I forget. But we had, every Halloween, the kids would dress up, So one fellow had dressed up, I forget what he was, maybe George Washington or something. But it was a really good costume, and he didn't want people to know who he was, who he really was. So he didn't say anything, he didn't speak. He just sat there, and looked. And everyone was going, "Who is that? Who is that? It's such a good costume, Now, if you imagine you're acting as Napoleon or something, and you fall down, you get hit on the head, and you wake up and you forgot who you really are, and so you go to look in the mirror and says, "Oh, I'm Napoleon," and you actually start thinking that, you're believing that you're that. I think the hospitals, the mental hospitals, are full with people who really believe something like that. So that's that's dangerous. That's not that's not going to help you to get into that kind of thing. So Prabhupada, I swear, I just heard him say this on a lecture, that this whole world is like a lunatic asylum. Is that we're all thinking we're something we're not. We're playing these roles in these particular costumes we're wearing. We call them that in the 2nd chapter. And then at a certain, and we play the role, and then it's over. The costume is ripped away from us, and we have to get a new costume, depending on our activities. So Krishna consciousness means, carefully removing the costume before death and acting according to our actual role. So replacing the false ego with the real ego. Now it's Mahamaya who tries to keep us convinced that we really are, this costume. But Yoga Maya, this is the advantage. This is why I say that, this idea of an intervention, when someone is so wigged out or addicted to alcohol or some drug, and they really are in the grip of that agent, and they can't escape on their own. So a friend or relative, someone who really cares for them, will grab them by the shoulder and say, "Hey, Bob, you're coming with me to rehab. Your wife is going to leave you. Your mortgage is going." In other words, you're ruining your life. So before that happens, I'm taking you to rehab. And it's an intervention. And someone who's fortunate, to have that, who's addicted and who surrenders to it, can be saved. If you surrender to that person, and you actually go, and then you get into the process, whatever. So that's exactly it's a good analogy for what happens in Krishna consciousness. We're wandering around in illusion. There's really no hope. We try to go here, and figure out on our own, but it's like the blind leading the blind, But someone who's enlightened, the spiritual master, enters in. That's exactly what Prabhupada did. He came in, he himself could not be illusioned by what was going on. He was so empowered. This is what it means to be a Shaktivesh. This idea of the Shaktivesh avatar. Shaktivesh means infused with the power of God. Jesus Christ, great. In other words, fully God conscious and unshakable faith. And such a person has great potency and can convince others. This was what Prabhupada really displayed to us. If you listen to his lectures, especially comes out in the voice, and the way he speaks. He was completely convinced. It's not that he's bringing some philosophy that he read about, and he's Vigyan, means realized soul. So when he's saying that, the amazing things, come on, God is a small little boy playing with a flute, and on the face of it, it looks pretty fantastical, But he brought with him, a whole line of realized souls. He wasn't just speaking on his own that he came up with this philosophy. He was just the latest in the line of great souls who realized this very truth. That was his whole point. This whole word channeling, which was like spoiled, 20 years ago, but that's really a good word. Too bad it was kind of spoiled. But the channel, he used the word transparent via medium. Really, just take the via out, and transparent medium, transmitting purely without distortion. And so that's great potency. And for those who are a little bit receptive, it can transform your life. And the most important transformation is that you have enough faith to try the process. And when you start chanting and actually hearing the holy name, then Krishna really starts from within to purify. So you have all the advantages, the guru from without, the guru from within, and then you have a chance to really purify your senses and your mind and everything, and become enlightened yourself, at least to some degree. So that's what he's speaking about here. The tattva vid, he knows very well the difference between binding activity and liberating activity, and he always chooses the liberating activity, not wanting to slide back, into illusion and bondage. So this is very dramatic, actually. Okay, should we go on? We're coming upon one of the most fascinating parts of this Bhagavad Gita, which is the lust section. It's coming up soon. Yeah, we'll take a few days. Prakate guna sammudha sajjante guna karmasu thana krishna vado mandan krishna bin navachalayet. There's this word kritsna and the word Krishna, and they're not completely different words. We'll see. So kritsna means factual knowledge. Kritsna, complete. It usually means complete or full, like that. Bewildered by the modes of material nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material activities and become attached. But the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior due to the performer's lack of knowledge. Purport. Persons who are unknowledgeable falsely identify with gross material consciousness and are full of material designations. This body is a gift of the material nature, and one who is too much attached to the bodily consciousness is called manda, or a lazy person without understanding of spirit soul. Ignorant men think of the body as the self. They accept bodily connections with others as kinsmanship. The land in which the body is obtained is their object of worship, and they consider the formalities of religious rituals to be ends in themselves. Social work, nationalism, and altruism are some of the activities for such materially designated persons. Under the spell of such designations, they are always busy in the material field. For them, spiritual realization is a myth, and so they are not interested. Those who are enlightened in spiritual life, however, should not try to agitate such materially engrossed persons. Better to prosecute one's own spiritual activities silently. Such bewildered persons may be engaged in such primary moral principles of life as nonviolence and similar materially benevolent work. Men who are ignorant cannot appreciate activities in Krishna consciousness, and therefore Lord Krishna advises us not to disturb them and simply waste valuable time. But the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the purpose of the Lord. Consequently, they undertake all kinds of risks, even to the point of approaching ignorant men to try to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human being. So, this is an interesting purport, because after, saying, oh, we shouldn't disturb, but actually, the devotees do disturb. This whole Sankirtan movement, which started out in America with going out and chanting the holy name before book distribution really came out. That was it. And devotees would go out for hours and hours. It was really wonderful because it publicized the movement, and it was intriguing to some people. To some people, it's just an annoyance. The police would fairly often arrest the devotees in certain areas because they're. But Rayamar said he got arrested for parading without a permit. This on the street chanting Hare Krishna, parading without a permit. Just an excuse. But in many cases, like where I was in New York, it's a very liberal city, so I never got arrested for just chanting on the street. So all kinds of stuff were going on in New York streets. So, but it's purifying for the devotees, to chant for hours at a time. And because of the bliss of the devotees, it becomes attractive and intriguing to certain people. And then if you have some literature, the movement actually grew on that basis for a long time. A lot of young people searching here and there. Okay, I'll try. You guys seem pretty happy. Let me see what I think some people, though, were on a certain drug, and they thought that maybe I'll take the drug and get high that way. Whatever it was, it can be a disturbance. But you're definitely getting in people's faces, And what does big a book distribution and take this book? How many times, people, brush you off? I mean, it happens all the time. For you, I don't know. You're so pure. Sometimes maybe everybody's. Anyway, so that's not what Krishna is saying here. He says, they don't bother them. He says. The wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior. But we do unsettle them, because without being unsettled, they're just going to slide right down into a very dark future. So it's just like people, Prabhupada gave the analogy of you see a kid flying a kite on a roof, and he's going toward the edge of the roof. You don't just watch. You try to warn him. But that's exactly what people are doing here. They're completely oblivious. And they're headed toward a very dark future, because in this age, forget about the Vedas and just the moral principles. It's just a disaster. People are performing all kinds of vikarma and sinful activities, and it's disastrous. So devotees in the mood of Nityananda Prabhu, even those who are, seemingly the least likely to respond, you still try to give them Krishna consciousness, and lo and behold, sometimes they become, great candidates. But the other part of this is that we have to do it in such a way that you don't become contaminated by that. This is the danger. If you're not strong enough, and like I remember, I mean, it's just history. back in the day, back in the 74 it probably was, the temple I was in Brooklyn, it was a lot of devotees there, and book distribution started to become prominent. And mostly we go out and distribute magazines and small books. There's not that much big book distribution going on at first, you know. So where do you go? Well, concerts. You know, they have all these people gathered there, a lot of young people who were just like us before we joined, you know, like that. So there was this one fellow who was, you know, it seemed like he was an initiated Brahmin, which in those days was a big deal. It means that he'd been in the movement 2 or 3 years and got recognized, you know. And he had a position in the press. We actually, you know, where we were making the books. And in those days, it wasn't like now. You can put out a book on your own, you know. It's called desktop publishing. I mean, it's kind of a given now, right? You know, you got these programs. You can lay out a book and you send it to the printer. And you know, no, in those days it was a big deal. You had to actually print what we called the flats or galleys, and they were cut up and then pasted. And there's a whole. I don't know if you remember that. Anyway, he was one of the pasters and, you know, shooters. He was a cameraman. So, but then he went out on Sankirtan, book distribution, and he went to a concert. And never came back. He had been a musician. He had been a guitar, which I didn't know. There was no sign of it. And somehow he got spirited away. Maybe he met some old friends there, you know, and he didn't see him again. So that was kind of a shock, you know. So you have to be conscious enough of your limitations so that you don't put yourself in a situation where you get, you know, swept away, which can be happen. So that's what this verse is warning about, is that those who are knowledge, prakriti guna samudha, bewilderment, the ignorant fully engage themselves, but the wise should not unsettle them, although these duties are inferior. So Prabhupada, he mentions that, but then he says, but in Krishna conscious activities, devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord, because they understand the purpose of the Lord. So they take risks, and Prabhupada certainly took risks, and he taught us to do that. And if you come through that, you know, you kind of strengthen your spiritual muscles. So you find, yeah, you know, I mean, this influence cannot take, you get stronger. But you have to know your limits, otherwise you can have trouble. It happens sometimes. Okay, one more.
In regards to understanding, knowing our own limits, would you say that it's necessary to put ourselves in situations, just like anything in life, where to reach that next level, or you know, to overcome our own challenges, obstacles, we have to kind of put ourselves in a situation where we're testing our.
It's just like Hare Krishna. It's kind of like, believe it or not, I used to lift weights. We're going back 60 years, but I used to lift weights when I was almost 60 years. You know, a young kid, you know. So you have to know your limits. You know, you want to build up your muscles or something, you know, but you can pull a muscle if you go too fast, too hard. So the watchword is try to stay in association. This is why, you know, you have a party, you know, if possible, where you go, okay, we're going to go to this new area, we're going to stay out later, or try this new technique, or whatever. But you don't do it alone, because being with devotees gives you much more strength, you know. And you have to gauge yourself. All right, we want to try, you know, to increase our preaching and our sadhana, whatever it may be. But there's even the warning about that in the Nectar of Devotion. I guess I forget how it's worded, but the gist of it is to take on more than you can really do. Prabhupada gives the example, I'm going to chant 64 rounds from today. You know, but I don't know if you ever tried chanting 64 rounds. It's a challenge. You know, it's one thing if you have the whole day to do it and there's nothing else to do. You know, but oftentimes you're trying to do it in a certain amount of time, and it's very difficult. And so you can discourage yourself if you take on too much too fast. But by the same token, as you point out, this is how you grow and you build your spiritual muscles by gradually, increasing your service, refining your service, taking on more austerities. So it has to be done consciously, and that's why it's good to have association and good to have a superior who's, experienced and can guide your path. So there's the principle of taking on too much, but there's also the principle of pressing forward and moving nicely through accepting more and refining your service. It's a question of, intelligence, doing it intelligently. Okay, where were we? All right, this is good. We'll read text 30, but we'll also start with text 30. Here's another one of these really important verses. This, as you read the verse of the purport, this verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. When I read that in the purport many years ago, I immediately memorized the verse. This verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, okay, that sounds like an important verse. You'll see when we read it. Mai sarvani karmani sanyasyadhyatma chetasa nirashir nirmamho bhutva yudyasva vigatadvaraha. Therefore, now when you see a therefore, that's summing up an argument, right? Therefore, O Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desire for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. Now, that fighting, of course, is Arjuna's duty. So you can plug in your own duty there, but it's kind of a universal principle there for Krishna consciousness. Purport. This verse clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. The Lord instructs that one has to become fully Krishna conscious to discharge duties as if in military discipline. Such an injunction may make things a little difficult. Nevertheless, duties must be carried out with dependence on Krishna, because that is the constitutional position of the living entity. The living entity cannot be happy independent of the cooperation of the Supreme Lord, because the eternal constitutional position of the living entity is to become subordinate to the desires of the Lord. Arjuna was therefore ordered by Sri Krishna to fight as if the Lord were his military commander. One has to sacrifice everything for the goodwill of the Supreme Lord, and at the same time discharge prescribed duties without claiming proprietorship. Arjuna did not have to consider the order of the Lord, he had only to execute his order. The Supreme Lord is the soul of all souls. Therefore, one who depends solely and wholly on the Supreme Soul without personal consideration, or in other words, one who is fully Krishna conscious, is called Adhyatma Chetas. Adhyatma Chetas, that's in the verse here. Nirashi means one has to act on the order of the Master but should not expect fruitive results. Nirashi, without personal longing or aspiration. The cashier may count millions of dollars for his employer, but he does not claim a cent for himself. Similarly, one has to realize that nothing in the world belongs to any individual person, but that everything belongs to the Supreme Lord. That is the real purport of Mayi, or unto me. And when one acts in such Krishna consciousness, certainly he does not claim proprietorship over anything. This consciousness is called nirmama, or nothing is mine. And if there is any reluctance to execute such a stern order, which is without consideration of so-called kinsmen in the bodily relationship, that reluctance should be thrown off. In this way, one may become vigata dvara, or without feverish mentality or lethargy. Everyone, according to his quality and position, has a particular type of work to discharge, and all such duties may be discharged in Krishna consciousness as described above. That will lead one to the path of liberation. So all of a sudden here in the third chapter, now we're given like the absolute platform again. Just like in the second chapter, you're going along and you're hearing about the soul, and then Krishna talks about being fixed in consciousness, and then all of a sudden Krishna is describing the highest levels of devotion. And it says, so how's it go? Prajahati yada kaman sarvan bharta manogatan apamani madadatushta stita pragya. The stita pragya means fixed consciousness. So throwing away all material desires, yada sarvan bharta manogatan, that arise from the mind, and being satisfied in the self alone, this is the fixing. Well, that's pure devotion. So the second chapter is a summary of the contents, but it all contains it. So similarly, the third chapter, where he's going along, in this chapter also he talked about sacrifices to the gods, so that you can live prosperously in the world. You got to perform sacrifice so the rains will come. You can say, well, okay, I mean that's kind of lower stage of Krishna consciousness, working up to it. But here, there's no working up to it. Suddenly, Mai, unto me, Sarvani Karmani, Sanyasya, give it all up to me, you know. So this is typical of what Prabhupada does in the purports, and this purport is totally like on the highest level, you know, of engaging in your duties solely and wholly to please Krishna. It's advanced position. But this is what ultimately it comes to. All activities. Notice that it's karma yoga, so this word karma keeps coming up here. Sadnyas means giving up the fruits. Adhyatma chetasa, fully conscious of the nature of the self and the soul. And then nirashir, having no material desires or aspirations, having no sense of proprietorship. Then do your duty. It reminds me of a verse in the second chapter where Krishna says, how's it go? You have a right to perform your duty. Oh, I can't believe it. But you don't aspire for the fruits, and don't think that you're the doer, and don't be attached to not doing your duty. So you think about it. It says, "Oh, I have a right to do my duty, but I can't get to the fruits." Well, at least let me take credit for a job well done. No, you don't think that you're the doer. Well, then forget it. I'm just going to lie down and say, "No, you can't be attached to not doing your duty." It's from every angle. So this is the same thing. Give it all up to me, and don't have any material aspirations. Don't have any sense of proprietorship, but do your duty. Fight. But that's actually the platform of happiness. It's 180 degrees different than what we're doing now. I'm the doer, I'm the proprietor, and I'm the enjoyer, and I'm going to enjoy like anything. And what happens? You suffer like anything. Because it's not our natural position. It's just like you're in a situation that's unnatural, and you can't really attain any peace or freedom that way. It's just anxiety, one after another. Eventually, every material endeavor is a failure, because we get old and die. We have to leave it all behind, And we dream. We have this illusion. Oh, I'll leave it to my I'll live on through my grandchildren. No, you won't. You forget all about them, and you'll be in some other situation, and it'll probably be horrible. So better to follow this path of knowledge. Yes, it's mysterious. It's mystical. You can't understand how it's working, but we have to have faith in the line of acharyas. And the wonderful thing is that if you really throw yourself into it and you practice a little bit, you immediately feel some result. It's not that you have to wait, 10, 15, 20 years, or at the time of death, am I liberated or not? You feel liberated, peaceful, confident, fixed before time. That's what Krishna consciousness is so powerful, that it gives immediate results, and therefore it's available for everybody in every station of life. Okay, that's after 8 o'clock? Okay. Uh-oh. All right, go ahead. I'll repeat the question.
Okay, he's establishing the platform in this chapter.
Yeah.
He did in chapter 2.
Yeah.
Does he do it in every chapter?
Pretty much every chapter has verses that are like this, that give you the absolute plane. But it becomes very much more obvious as you get into the later chapters, like 15, and at the end of 14, it's all about the modes of nature. But then the last few verses, Mam Chiyova Vicharena, one who practices unflinching, unfailing devotion to me, will transcend the modes of nature. And then the next verse is all about Brahman, how I'm the source of Brahman, and that's the platform of absolute happiness. So he's always coming back to that point. And in case there's any doubt, Prabhupada hammers it home in practically every purport. It always comes to the point of pure devotion. There's no chance, just like in the Bhagavatam, you find it's a big book. It's 18,000 verses, and even though 18 big volumes, But it's Kali Yuga. Are they really going to get through these books? So right in the second chapter, there's a full lesson on. It's all you need. It's starting with text 6 of the second chapter, in the next 20 verses or so. If you just follow those carefully, especially with Prabhupada purports, you get a full lesson, and you can go back to God. So, but if you're really intrigued, you keep going on. Of course, you get much more. So I think it's like that in the Gita also. Mai Sarvani, this is the second chapter. Mai Sarvani Karmani, no, it says, Tani, God, now I'm forgetting my verses. Anyway, it's all about it. But if you engage all your senses in me, this is the first time Krishna presents himself as the object of devotion there in the second. Engaging all your senses in me, then you can remain fixed in consciousness. So he gives it, that's cue there. Okay, we're actually out of time. So, a couple of little poems for meditation, then we can adjourn. So, let's see, ones that you maybe haven't heard lately. Well, this one I don't think I shared with you. This is from Rishabdev. It's inspired by Rishabdev. I couldn't get all of it. You've heard it before, but it's, don't waste this precious human life, dear friend, by working hard for hoggish happiness. Through bhakti yoga, worldly life transcend and learn to taste divine love's endless bliss. And then here's one I didn't put a poem into, but I was just rediscovering these verses. Gopamangal Thakur. Balika talika tala lilalaya sanga sandarshada brulata vibrama. Gopika Gita Dravida Prabhu SanDiego Venuna Devaki Nandana. There's 8 of these verses, they all end in this phrase. SanDiego Venuna Devaki Nandana. And Devaki Nandana is the name for Krishna. Thus Devaki Nandana is playing upon his flute, singing on his flute. So Balika, those are the gopis. Talika, they're clapping. What are they clapping? Beats, tal. Like the Mridanga beats, Balika, talika, tala, lilali. Very playfully, they're clapping like this. And Krishna is paying careful attention to that. Balika talika tala sanga sandarshada brulata vibrama, and he's moving his creeper-like eyebrows in time with their clapping. You see? And while they're clapping, Gopika Gita, they're singing, the gopis of Gita, they're singing. And Krishna is listening to that, and he's playing the flute in time. So the gopis are clapping and singing, and Krishna is moving his eyebrows and playing the flute in time. Isn't that cool? I thought that was so cool. By Gopamangal Thakur. There's 8 verses like that. Oh, we have time for one more. So this is describing the rasa dance in one verse. Just a little window. Angana mangana mandade madhavo madhava madhavam chantade nangana. Ittama kalpate mandale manjiga sanjigo veruna devaki nandana. So between each gopi is a Krishna, Madhava. And between each Madhava is a gopi. See? And this is a big circle that's been created by Krishna. In the middle of that circle, Krishna is standing there and playing his flute, singing. Anganam anganam andade madhavo madhavam madhavam chantade nangana. Ittama kalpate. Kalpate means fashion. He's fashioned this circle. Ittama kalpate mandale madjiga sanjigo venana devaki. Hare Krishna. Now we've come to the time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.